morning, Northern Colorado. This is Ron, K0AZA. Marty wasn't able to do the net tonight, so you get to put up with the B team. I'm located in Fort Collins, and I'll be net control for tonight's NCARC TechNet. The purpose of the TechNet is to enlighten amateur radio operators on topics of a technical nature. We'll do our best to answer any technical questions for the benefit of all of those who are listening. If there's a subject that has never been made quite clear to you, this is a great opportunity to find an answer. If anyone feels they have information that will help regarding that subject, please give your call sign and Net Control will call on you. This net may be interrupted at any time for emergencies or priority traffic. If you need to use the system for an emergency during the net, say break and give your call sign. We'll acknowledge you and suspend the net until you advise that you are clear. Is there any emergency or priority traffic at this time? All licensed amateur radio operators with 70-centimeter privileges are encouraged to check into the net. NCARC club membership is encouraged but never required for participation. Check-ins are requested for the purpose of counting participation and no checkout is required. This is K0AZA, net control for tonight's NCARC TechNet. When checking in, please give your call sign slowly, first alphabetically, then again using the ITU phonetic alphabet, along with your name and location. When checking in, please state if you'll have a topic that you would like to discuss. Check-ins will be taken in groups of 3. When I've acknowledged the first group of 3, I'll then move on to the next group of 3. I'll start now by taking check-ins from call suffixes alpha through Mike. Alpha through Mike, please call now.
This is 0 Kilo, Alpha Echo 0 Kilo Oscar, Brandon, Fort Collins.
And 0 EMP, Greg in Fort Collins with Debbie, K0 DBE, no traffic.
Okay, let's hold there. The net acknowledges AE0KO and 0 EMP and K0 DBE. Any other check-ins from call suffixes alpha through Mike?
0 HAK, Kilo 0, Hotel Alpha Kilo, Dave in Fort Collins.
AF7MO, Roger in Windsor, no traffic.
Whiskey Alpha 7, Echo Mike, Ed and Erie. Let's hold there. The net acknowledges K0HAK, KF7MO, and WA7EM. Any other check-ins, call suffixes alpha through Mike, call now.
W0LEI, Whiskey 0 Lima Echo India, Chad and Stout, no traffic.
Kilo Foxtrot 0, Golf Quebec Hotel, KF0GQH in Wellington.
Delta 0, Echo X-Ray Victor, Brian Greeley.
Brian, could you repeat your call sign, please? I got fat-fingered and didn't get it written down.
Echo X-Ray Victor.
Okay, the net acknowledges W0LEI, KF0GQH, and K0EXR. Any other check-ins from call suffixes alpha through Mike?
K3 SAB, Kilo 3 Sierra Alpha Delta, and I have a topic, George and Windsor.
This is Whiskey 0 Alpha Sierra Papa, W0ASP, Terry in Berthoud, no traffic.
KF0 LDS, Kilo Foxtrot 0, Lima Delta Sierra, Normal in Lakewood.
Okay, the net acknowledges K3 SAB, W0ASP, and KF0 LDS. Normally you're blasting in up here tonight. Any other check-ins? Actually, let's just open it up. Any check-ins alpha through Zulu? Please call in now.
Kilo Foxtrot 0, Oscar, Charlie, Whiskey, Adrian in Fort Collins.
This is Kilo Bravo 0, Yankee Delta November, Eric, Pinewood Lake.
This is November 0, November Yankee, N0NYY, Bart in Evans, I am with N0QXQ, November 0, Quebec, X-ray Quebec, Jean, Juliet, Echo, Alpha, November, also in Evans. Good evening.
Let's hold up there. And that acknowledges KF0OCW. Adrian, good to hear you on here tonight. KB0YDN, N0NYY, and N0QXQ. Any other check-ins? Alpha through zero. Try that again. Alpha through Zulu. Come back now.
Kilo Echo 0, Papa, Uniform, Quebec, Bill, Dublin.
Kilo Foxtrot 0, Echo Golf Charlie, KF0 EGC, right in, from Loveland, I have a subject.
Uniform, Foxtrot, Al from me.
Triple.
Let's hold there for a second. Al, you doubled with someone. I didn't get the beginning of your call sign. Could you come back with your call sign one more time, please?
Certainly. WA1IUF, Whiskey Alpha 1, India, Uniform, Foxtrot.
Okay, let's hold there. Then I acknowledge KE0PIQ, KF0EGC, and WA1IUF. Al, I think I talked to you a couple of days ago. Welcome to the net. Any other check-ins? Alpha through Zulu. Call now.
This is KF0 NRM, Kilo Foxtrot 0, November Romeo Mike, Ken and Berthoud with a question.
And WB0ECG, Whiskey Bravo 0, Uniform Charlie Golf, Jeff and Boulder with a question.
KF0ODO, Kilo Foxtrot 0, Oscar Delta Oscar, Craig and Windsor, no traffic.
Let's hold there. I've got KF0, I think it was NRM. I can't read my own handwriting yet. If I got that wrong, come back and let me know. WB0UCG and KF0ODO. Any other check-ins? Alpha through Zulu. Okay, well, let's go ahead and begin. If there are any other late check-ins, we can take them later. Let's start with K3SAD. George, you were first on the list. Please go ahead with your question.
K3SAD. So I was listening to some sellers talking the other night, and they were talking about one of them had a long-range setup for hitting a repeater from his property, so an antenna up on a hill, and then a handheld. So he walked around the house was to reach it in order to secondarily hit the repeater. His thoughts on how to implement that and pros and cons and what you that's my question.
So George, if I understand correctly, you're saying that he had a large transmitter or antenna in his home, and he reached it with an HT. So your question is how they do that. Do I understand that correctly?
Yes, they do. Yeah, that captures the gist of it. I'm curious as far as that goes. It does you a lot more handy because it's very hands-free.
So the way I would do it, and it may not be the right way, but I'll throw mine out, and then hopefully somebody else can come up with a better solution, would be set up your base station as a crossband repeater. A lot of radios will do crossband repeat. So basically they receive on one frequency and retransmit on another, and then the same thing on the receive side. So you're basically talking to your base station on one frequency with your HT in simplex, and then talking your base station transmitting and receiving on another frequency. That would be how I would understand you would do it, but look forward to hearing what others might have to say. This is K0AZA.
That's easier. And the second thought would be, are you always locked into the same repeater that way? So you have to go to the base station and change it? Or is there a way to remotely change the output for the other thought?
That I don't know. Anybody else out there might know the answer to George's question?
NYY.
Go ahead, Bart.
Ron, I agree with what you said about the crossband length. There's a few things I would add to that. first I will answer the second question. There were, I don't know about today, but in the past, there were several radios with crossband link capability that also had DTMF control. So let's say you're using a 2-meter simplex and you're talking and you're crossbanding to this repeater. Via the 2-meter simplex, you could send DTMF codes and tell the base radio to switch to a different repeater on the 440 side. Now, whether that would take the crossband link function with it at the same time, I can't tell you that for sure. I'm not positive. I do remember one radio I did that with, and it went to the other frequency, but I lost the crossband link because I couldn't set up crossband link as a memory, and I could tell the radio contained memory, and when it did that, it lost the crossband link. As far as controlling, say, a VFO while doing a crossband link, research would be in order. I would not be surprised if there are radios that do it, but I don't know of any for sure. And the other comment, remember that a radio in crossband link is transmitting almost all the time, or a very high percentage of the time, whereas we typically have a 50% duty cycle of transmission time or less. Your crossband link radio is going to have a very high duty cycle, so you want to be sure that your power supply is up for it and that your power levels are set to the minimum necessary, because that radio is going to heat up considerably at that high of a transmit duty cycle. The other point is that while you are transmitting and receiving on 2 separate frequencies, let's say you're receiving on the 440 and it's retransmitting. How do I clarify that? I've got that thought confused in my head. Give me just a second. Okay, when the radio is transmitting on one band, it's trying to receive on another band through the same antenna, and that can dramatically reduce the sensitivity of the radio on the band that it's receiving. It's called desensitization, or desense. And another thing that you have to watch out for. Now, if you have a really strong signal into your crossband rig, it's not an issue. But if your signal is at all marginal, then transmitting on 2 meters could drop your sensitivity of receive on 440 enough that you may not quite be able to hear the repeater as well as you could if you were not crossband linking. I hope that's clear. N0 in my way.
NRL.
Go ahead.
I have seen a single-band simplex repeater. It's a small device that records the audio, and it can be keyed with the DTMF codes so that it will only receive, if you're sending the correct code, it records for a while, and then it retransmits. I don't know if that is an option. I've seen them on Amazon for the $60 range. That would be a single-band, fairly limited solution as well.
George, did that answer your question adequately?
Yes, sure did. Definitely a lot of food for thought there. I would think a parroting computer would be difficult because everybody hear you talking well after you spoke, so that might be worse than a nickel-link chamber. But yeah, that's really good ideas, and I appreciate it. Back to that.
Glad we could answer them. If there aren't any other comments on this subject, let's move on then. KF0EGC, you had a question?
Yes, I'm researching a large loop antenna for HF. This is KF0EGC, and I was wondering how the performance characteristics of that large loop, we're talking about 570 or so feet, versus a infed sloper.
N0 AMP.
Go ahead, Craig.
I had a horizontal loop antenna about 15 feet off the ground, and it was one wavelength on 80 meters. And 80 meters and up in frequency, or 80 meters and down in wavelength, like 80 through 10 meters with a tuner. It worked very well. I was using a dead tree as one of the supports, and the dead tree finally rotted and fell over. So now I use a end fed, just because of supports that are available here. But it worked very well at the time. Dan, W7RF, has a two-turn loop that's a full wavelength on 160 meters, and he loves it and does a lot with it. So they do work. It will not work below, like mine was 80 meters. So it was a quarter wave on each side for 80 meters. So the full circumference was 80 meters. It would not work below that in frequency. So that's the limiting factor, but they do work in 0 EMP.
KF0 EGC. So, yeah, I was looking at a 160 meter long piece of wire. The question is, I don't have a perfect square or a loop, so does the shape really matter? Or as long as I get kind of roughly a loop, performance will be good?
Yes, there are people that, there's some postings if you search horizontal loop antennas. There are some folks that they just used whatever they had as far as trees or whatnot, and they had kind of an approximation of a circle or a octagon or a square, and they worked fine.
Thank you very much.
W0ASP comment?
Go ahead, Terry.
Well, with a dipole, the key characteristic of the linear wire is like with a loop antenna, the key characteristic is the area that is enclosed by the loop. And the larger the area you can get, the better it works as an antenna.
Terry, anybody else have any comments?
Five-sided. I've got from house to my shop building is about 160 feet per leg, and then 70 feet over the top of the shop, and then I've got to close it back to the house again. So looks like I'll have a pretty good wide area then.
Right. Worry about the shape of the loop. Although the closer to circular you can get, the better. Worry about how much area is covered by the inside the loop perimeter.
Will do, and I'll report back how well it works here in a few weeks.
Any other comments on that question before we move on?
I'd just like to say welcome back, Terry, and 0 EMP.
I'll second that, and 0 in my life.
I third that. If there's nothing else on that one, let's move on then to KF0NRM. Canon Bertha, you had a question?
Yes, thank you. I'm starting to dip my toes into 10 meter, and so far I've constructed a full wave loop wire antenna, and I'm working on a magnetic loop antenna. The performance on the magnetic loop antenna isn't as good as on the full wave loop, and I'm wondering if anybody has any hints or tips as to proper construction of a magnetic loop antenna. NRMO.
EMP.
Go ahead, Greg.
So magnetic loop antennas are more compact. So when you're working at 80, 40, or 20 meters, and you don't have a lot of physical space, a tuned magnetic loop antenna becomes attractive. On 10 meters, when a quarter wave whip's only about 8 feet, I don't understand why you would want to mess with a magnetic loop.
Limited space and experimentation pleasure, shall we call it.
Okay, well, there are some drawbacks to the tuned magnetic loop. very high voltage gets developed with any kind of power, so you need a very high voltage capacitor, and you have very narrow bandwidth wherever you tune it to, so you have to retune it every time you cue a slice somewhere else in the band. So again, for 10 meters, I don't know why you would go that route. I mean, 20, 40, 80, sure, but I mean, they will work there. I don't know how well they work compared to a dipole or a quarter wave ground plane. But again, on 10 meters, I don't really know, unless you really have like no space at all to work with. I don't know why you'd do it. N0EMP.
W0ASP, another comment?
Go ahead, Terry.
One of the huge differences between dipole antennas and loop antennas are the electromagnetic boundary conditions at your ground layer. With an electric field antenna like a dipole, the electric field goes to zero when you are a small number of wavelengths above the ground. With a magnetic antenna, your magnetic field doubles when you are close to the conducting ground. So for 10 meters, loop doesn't make sense because for any reasonable height above the Earth, your magnetic fields are probably going to be lower than your electric fields.
NRM?
Go ahead, Ken.
Thank you for the comments. I am somewhat space limited and just starting out, so I don't really have the room to string a horizontal antenna very high. But I will look at the vertical, try out a 10-meter vertical here. Thank you all for the help, everyone. NRM.
N0KIN.
Anyone have anything additional to add to this topic?
N0KIN.
Go ahead, Ken.
If you're just looking at talking 10 meter, look at the CD base station antennas named IMAX 2000 or Antron or A99. Either one of them will tune 10, 11 meters beautifully and have a pretty decent gain. And in my CB days, I've talked some real good distance on very low power. N0KIN, that's all I had.
Thanks, Ken, and it's good to hear you in here. Anybody else before we move on?
WA9FBO.
FBO, go ahead.
Late check-in, Ron. Bob in LaPorte, WA9FBO. Thanks.
Thanks, Bob. Before we move on to our next question, this is K0AZA, Net Control for the Northern Colorado Amateur Radio Club Weekly TechNet. Are there any other late check-ins? Hearing none, let's move on to Jeff's question. WB0UCG, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. This is Jeff, WB0UCG. My question is about a very old radio. Has anyone on frequency ever owned a Yaesu Fox Tango 227 Romeo? Let's see, I think that's right, FT227R. I think that's correct. Otherwise known as the Memorizer. Has anyone ever owned this radio and ever troubleshot any functional problems with it?
Well, it's kind of a cool-looking old radio. Anybody have any experience with one? Well, Jeff, I hate to say it, but I think you stumped us on that one.
Oh, that's quite all right. I owned one a long time ago, like 30 years ago, and I was doing something with it, packet or something, and I don't know what happened to it. I recently bought one off of eBay, and it has no audio. And I do have a schematic and some troubleshooting information, and I'm just trying to figure out what's going on with it.
Go ahead, Bart.
I would be more than happy to help walk you through the troubleshooting and such. I've done a fair bit of that in my history. And I would ask, do you have an oscilloscope?
Yes, the answer is yes. I do have a digital... an inexpensive digital storage oscilloscope. Yeah, maybe we could get together sometime. I would certainly love to have your benefit of your experience.
Roger, Roger. If you look up N0NYY on QRZ, you should see my email. Send me an email. I'll send you a phone number, and we can email or talk or however you want to do that. And where are you? I notice you're coming in on the Lee Hill machine. I can't think of the frequency. It's 750 machine. But where do you live?
I live in Northeast Boulder, very close to the to 34th and the Diagonal.
Roger, Roger. I worked in Gun Barrel for a couple of years. Definitely look me up, send me an email, and I would be more than happy to help.
Well, thanks very much, Bart. WB0UCG back to net.
And 0 on my line, like that.
Anyone else have anything additional to add to this topic?
KF0FIO checking in.
KF0FIO, can I get your name and location, please?
Sure, sorry, this is KF0FIO. My name is Ernie, location Aurora, Colorado.
Hi, Ernie. Welcome to the TechNet. Are there any other questions tonight? I think I had everyone who said they had a question. Anything else that's come up as we were talking? Any other late check-ins?
This is Kilo Echo 0 Yankee Alpha Victor. Eric in Windsor, late check-in. No traffic.
Thank you for the check-in, Eric. Given that, this concludes the NCARC TechNet. Net Control would like to thank each station for their participation. We had a total of 27 check-ins tonight. This net will occur again next Monday at the same time on this repeater. This is K0AZA closing the net.
This presentation was brought to you by the Northern Colorado Amateur Radio Club. For more information, visit our website, ncarc.net. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.